Yong-Soo, welcome to the show.
Alex, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you, man. First off, why don't you tell me a little bit about your company, Urban EDC?
Sure, yeah. So I started this company back in 2015, around October, and really it came out of in an area of need for me because I was really interested in this, I guess, this category of products called everyday carry gear. And so the
Okay.
Urban EDC, the EDC stands for everyday carry,
Uh-huh.
and it's stuff that you carry like your wallet, your watch, flashlight, maybe a bottle opener, your keychain tools. So things like that. And, I was actually working at a blockchain company called Ripple at the time. And I quit that. And then I started Urban EDC, selling pocket knives. And, people thought I was kind of nuts going from Silicon Valley hot blockchain startup to selling knives online. But that's exactly what I did. And yes, it's 7.5 years of growing this business. It's grown steadily. Interesting fact about Urban EDC is that we don't do any paid advertising. And so I know a lot of
Wow.
people with DTC e-commerce brands rely heavily on driving traffic to their website through paid advertising, but we've actually grown it through partnerships and we've grown it through collaborations.
Hmm.
And so, and the main reason is because we've actually gotten banned on Facebook pretty fast, pretty early on, because we're selling pocket knives. And so we had that growth channel kind of taken away from us. And so we had to find creative ways to find ways to drive traffic to the website and grow our business. So I would say that's kind of not your typical e-commerce, growth story, I guess. But yeah, that's kind of we've been able to just grow. Also, we're pretty strong in our community, so we make sure that our community members are really well taken care of. We just launched a paid membership community as well, which is doing pretty well. So yeah, I mean, we're always experimenting, trying different things to serve the community of everyday carry enthusiasts.
No, that's amazing. I think it's a really unique idea. And it sounds like you had to pivot in your marketing a little bit, and it's not always easy when you're starting a business and you have all those different avenues, and then a couple of them start getting stripped away from you real quick. You got to be able to think a little creatively, and also creatively is these collaborations that you've talked about. I looked at your store and you've got like a deck of playing cards, collaborated with another brand, and it's very well curated. So I'm interested in how you curate the products and those creators that you feature on the website.
Yeah, so ultimately it comes down to our customers, and so we want to make sure that we're bringing them products and we're bringing them an experience that they want. And so we get a lot of feedback from our customers on which type of makers we should work with. We ask about, what types of products. I mean, we see the data also. So, what's great about selling a lot of different SKUs is that we have a lot of data on what types of products that people buy. And so, quite often having a lot of SKUs is not fun for operations, but it's also there's a good side to that, which is you get to see a lot of data. And so, we work with makers, and a lot of these makers are high in demand, and so they go to these trade shows, knife shows, and their stuff sells out like really fast. A lot of them are like lottery only, so you can't even buy it even if you wanted to. And so we are careful about who we work with, and so we do a lot of outbound ourselves in terms of like partnerships, and so. Now we're actually starting to look beyond the makers within our everyday carry and knife community, and we're looking at brands that we can partner up with. And so we're going a little bit more outside of our own niche of everyday carry into a little more mainstream to bring more people, exposed to our brand. And so that's kind of the next, phase of our growth.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And again, when I looked at these products, they look kind of like art pieces or sculptures more than they do even like utility. I mean, obviously they are knives and bottle openers and multi-tools that you can use, but the craftsmanship is definitely more of like an artisan than something you would get at like, I don't know, a flea market or like a truck stop or something like that. Was that like a conscientious choice in the sort of branding, as having this unique artistry, high value, elevated is kind of the word that I think of.
Yeah, no, you hit it right there, which is that we do want that elevated experience. And so, when we came on the market, there was no shop that catered specifically to everyday carry gear, but there were knife shops that honestly felt like, website looked like it was built in the 90s. It was old school. And to be honest, the knife industry is very old school. You go to these trade shows and everyone is like, 50 years old or whatever. Like they're old school. And so we wanted to kind of bring in a fresh perspective into the entire industry. And we also wanted to elevate that experience. So you can, like you mentioned, everything that we bring in has both a functional aspect, but then we're really careful about the aesthetics and how it fits into the rest of the shop. And so we're not just bringing in, whatever, sells like instantly. Like we're trying to do a really good job of like, everything has to go together. So if you go to the shop and you buy like 10 things from the shop, like, we're trying to make all of those things work together as a kit, so yeah, we're pretty careful about, what we bring in, and how we position each product. And so you can even notice like on the website, we don't have the cents, so it's not like $9.99. We just say $10 or we say $9. And that's very deliberate because we don't want to be, $9.95. Like that kind of has a connotation of like, I don't know, it's like almost like a cheap feel to it.
There's a deal.
So
Yeah.
And so that's everything that we do is very deliberate in that respect, that we we want it to feel like you're entering a little bit of like a premium experience. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I love kind of the matching aesthetic. I mean, every single product fits the sort of aesthetic that's on the site. It reminds me, I don't know, a bit of like a tattoo shop or something like that. That's the best I can kind of describe it, is it feels very like, this brushed metal, very artisan, and, the deliberation to set your prices on whole numbers like that is an interesting one. And I'm very interested in what some of the other techniques that you've implemented to grow this brand from just a simple idea to what you said it is a multi-million-dollar e-commerce store over the last, 7-8 years.
Yeah, we are careful about our language and our messaging. And so, we want to make sure that whatever we bring in is stuff that you can't really find anywhere else. And so, we don't have any products on Amazon. We don't have, you can't easily just Google something that we sell and find somewhere else for a cheaper price. Like it's like our site, our shop is the destination if you're an EDC enthusiast. And like, this is it. Like you finally found your spot if you're an EDC gearhead, right? So that's the feeling that we want is, hey, this is for you. Like, and honestly, if you're not into EDC, then no, like you're not, this is not for you, right? But if you're into the type of gear that, this community really likes, then you'll quickly realize that like, this is the best shop, to kind of like itch that gear, itch that you have. And so that's really what we're going after is like, we want to offer kind of, I guess you could call them a more like entry level products, but then, we sell some custom knives that could go up to like $1,000, right? Yeah. And so we want to have products that will introduce you to certain price categories, but then, if you want to, you can level up into these higher price categories. And so we kind of mix and match those into our gear drops. So gear drops, we have them every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And so that's when we release all of our products. And it kind of creates this frenzy because a lot of that stuff sells out really fast. And so, we've had customers setting their alarm clocks to try to score some of these items, and they get really upset if they miss it. And so it's almost like part of that thrill to be like, oh, I got this item, like, I was finally able to get one. Like, so we want to like make sure that kind of experience is a it's almost like fun too. Like it's not just about product, but it's about the experience of like being able to get something that you couldn't get for a while. And so that's all built into this whole branding aspect. So
well, and it sounds like there's that bit of exclusivity in there of like, I got one and I'm a part of this exclusive little club. I think that's really smart. Now, tell me about the other brand, the other store that's a little similar, again, kind of a niche market, Spotted by Humphrey. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, so Spotted by Humphrey was born out of, so what's funny is we brought home a French Bulldog in 2017. And we just started posting some photos and videos online on Instagram. And some of his videos just went viral. And this is during a time when Instagram was really pushing for videos. So they had just gone from, photos only to now starting to show videos. And so like a couple of our videos, caught on fire basically in the algorithm, whatever. And it just took off, and his following grew very quickly. And so now he's got 150,000 followers across TikTok and Instagram. And so, my wife is actually the one who's managing, I guess she's kind of the momager of our dog. And, she runs, our e-commerce shop, Spotted by Humphrey. So the premise there is that, Humphrey is our dog, and he likes to dress up, whatever. We have these harnesses and leashes, and people ask, hey, where can I get those? And so instead of using like an Amazon affiliate link, plus Amazon doesn't have, they have all the, crappy stuff. So we bring in all the really like good stuff from overseas, like a lot of products from Korea and Japan. And, and those products are, not easy to find. So similar concept to Urban EDC, to be honest with you, but it's catered towards the dog audience. And so if you look at it, the websites are very different. So it's the front facing part of both e-commerce shops are very different, but the back end is actually really similar because of the fulfillment and all that stuff. And so we just thought, hey, it'd be nice, we already have the infrastructure for it. And so let's start another Shopify site to cater towards, dog owners instead of EDC gear enthusiasts, right? So, that's kind of what happened with Spotted by Humphrey. We were invited down to LA for Shopify, and they had an entire film crew. There's like 10 people, and there's an entire set. And my wife and Humphrey were on this professional set. And literally like Shopify or this film crew had filmed a commercial for Google the week before that. And so it was a pretty big deal. And I mean, honestly, like it's been a lot of fun just with these experiences that that we get to be a part of. So,
and that's cool. That feels like a very personal project to you. You named it after your dog. It's got that sort of authenticity to it, and I think that's really cool. Now to kind of like talk about both of these companies collectively, you mentioned their similarities, their differences. I'd like to start with the choice in making them both kind of like niche markets. And in my opinion, I feel like the dog owners and people who want to dress up their dogs thing can be even more niche than EDC. For example, I'd never even heard of EDC, but I know swaths of people who are knife collectors, wallet collectors, that sort of stuff, but still niche. Was that a conscientious decision to make both of these brands specifically niche, or that was just something that happened to happen?
Well, I think that it's important to start with a niche that is serving an audience, a community, basically. And so, the whole thing is, I have this framework called the MAPS framework, MAPS. And so, M stands for mindset, A is audience, P is product, and S is scale. And so, you really need to, for the audience portion of it, you really need to hone in on who you're serving. And honestly, like the more specific you can get in the beginning, the better. And so The reason why that is because people are really passionate about, this really like I don't know, this the nerdier you get with your niche, like the deeper you get, the more passionate these people are.
It's
That's
true.
just a fact.
Uh-huh.
And so when you find that niche that is like underserved and people are so passionate about it, they will really support you from the beginning, and they'll be excited about your brand. They'll be excited to support you because they're like, wow, this brand is like talking to me, and there's only like a few of us here. And so that level of passion can carry you a long way, especially in the beginning. Now, as you grow, you don't want to be limited to that one really specific niche, and so you start to broaden out a tiny bit, right? And so you might lose a few of your early supporters who are like super fans, like very, very early, but then the goal is that the rest of your growth comes from these other, slightly adjacent niches that are, bringing in other people. So just as an example, like Humphrey is our French bulldog, right? So a lot of French bulldog owners follow Humphrey, and they love everything that we buy is kind of catered towards that French bulldog branding, right? So, or I guess sizes and the clothing and stuff. And so we start there, but then what we notice is, like, for example, corgi owners are also really into, dressing up their dogs, and they really take care of their dogs. And so you can kind of get into the corgi market. And so, the Frenchie owners might be like, hey, it's not really like our market, but hey, you're expanding, right? Slightly. And so it's kind of like you go, slowly you expand. But in the beginning, you really want to focus on that really specific niche so that you can get those passionate early supporters.
No, I appreciate you explaining that to me, because I've talked with other people about the niche market, but the explanation of it feeling so much more personable is extremely insightful and valid and makes a lot of sense. In terms of the guts of those stores, so you mentioned on the surface they can be very different, but on the back end they're actually really similar. I'm curious what the main difference is and how these two online stores have to be run.
Yeah, so for the most part, on the front end, I mean, you just have the website and you have things like product photos. You got to upload the photos and you got to write up the product descriptions and then customer support emails, right? Mm-hmm. But then on the back end, most of the fulfillment aspect of it, the labeling of products and all that stuff is all pretty much the same. And so what we did is, so for Urban EDC, launched that in 2015. We were using a 3PL that did all that for us. And I did a lot of research on that and found that, to be honest, I found the service that had the highest, most glowing reviews. But then what I realized is, like, that company was actually pretty bad. Like, literally, like, we had items stolen. Like, we had a customer email me and he said, hey, is this a joke? I just got an empty box. And I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh,
and so
I'm sorry to hear that.
And so basically what had happened was the person that was picking and packing our order that day, it was his last day at that company. And he just took the knife out of the box and then shipped the empty box to our customer. And so things like that were happening. And so when I started to see that, I kind of thought, hey, the bar is pretty low here. Like, maybe we can do this better. And so we decided to bring it in-house. And then Spotted by Humphrey launched in 2018. And so we had two brands underneath our umbrella. And then, we were in this kind of like co-working space, but it was like in a warehouse. It's a kind of a unique setup, but we had a lot of e-commerce brands come to us and say, hey, by the way, who's doing your shipping? Because shipping is a big pain point for us. And so we just decided to privately take on a few clients. And then from there, we had paying clients before we even had a website or a brand name. But from that grew GrowthJet, which is our climate neutral certified third-party logistics company. And that launched in 2019. And so it just kind of naturally happened that way. But yeah, we just moved into a 39,000 square foot warehouse. And we are just firing on all cylinders. So yeah, and that's kind of the story of like how we shared resources on the back end and then capitalized on that. And then we had brands coming in asking us to help them with fulfillment. And then we just kind of grew from there. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it's perfect. It's like the perfect example of, that vertical integration that not a lot of people either do or really understand or even want to do, honestly. But to have such a firsthand experience of, doing all that research, finding someone, and then having them and I imagine that wasn't the only experience that led to you creating your own, 3PL provider, but it shows a lot of guts to kind of be like, I feel like this is a market that's being underserved, and grow that from there. In your opinion, for other people who are looking at 3PL partners, why is it so important to find the right one?
Yeah, the 3PL industry is really interesting because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And it's not easy because the 3PLs specialize in different areas. So each of them have like different areas of specialty. So like, for example, if you're selling food products, right? So CPG companies, you might need a warehouse that is room temperature like all year round. Like you can't have a warehouse that's going to be like really hot because maybe your food's going to spoil or whatever, right? And then there's other specialties like maybe you specialize in like apparel, so it's like really easy to do like you buy the boxes for storage, storing all these SKUs and all that stuff. But basically there's kind of like two different models of 3PLs, and one is like there's like I guess a middleman, and so you can think of like Shopify Fulfillment Network as one of these, which I think they actually shut down recently, but or they sold to Flexport, I think. But anyways, they are a middleman. So what they do is they contact individual warehouse operators like us, like GrowthJet, and they'll say, hey, we have a client. Do you want to be one of their warehouses? And so what they'll do is they're like kind of a middleman where they kind of, I guess they work with a lot of other warehouses. And so they try to create this cohesive experience for the brands. But what ends up happening is because Shopify or whoever this middleman is not the people who are actually doing the execution of the work, there is no incentive for 3PLs to help them out because 3PLs have their own clients, right? And so they want to make sure that they want to serve their clients, but then they have this like secondary orders coming through from this middleman, and like it's almost like a wholesale model. Like they're getting orders from a middleman and they're getting paid way less for them. And so they want to make sure that their own clients are taken care of first. And so you basically get like very, low level of service, which is very common in the 3PL industry. And, a lot of these middleman providers only have software. And so what they'll do is they'll build a really nice software, but then they won't actually have the operational execution part of it on their own. And so, trying to convince warehouses to really take care of their own customers, like it's a tough battle, I would say. And so what I typically recommend is like go directly to the warehouse, find a 3PL that operates the manpower to actually be able to, get your orders out on time. And then, ask a lot of questions that are pertinent to your specific brand. So if you have any special requirements, like, are you shipping glass, for example, right? Do you have the right dunnage or whatever, like packaging materials? And so, I would say definitely like ask around a lot, to find the right 3PL. But what I would say is definitely avoid these middlemen, companies where you're going to get thrown around a little bit. Like you're going to get bad service, and the service portion is really what that's what we're really trying to do, is provide really good service, because it doesn't really exist in the space, which is kind of crazy to me. But that's just kind of how the space has evolved.
Well, and on top of that, premium service that you're trying to provide that you feel is underprovided. You're also you've also announced that essentially GrowthJet is the first climate neutral certified 3PL provider. Can you tell me a little bit about that and
Yes.
some of the regulations you've had to implement to have that achievement?
Yeah. So we are actually the first climate neutral certified 3PL company in the world. And we work with this organization. They're at climateneutral.org, and it's a nonprofit. And it's a very reputable company. We have to offset all of our carbon footprint. And so we do the measurement, we have reduction goals, and then we have the actual offsets that we have to purchase. And so we go to the marketplace, and the Climate Neutral will give you a list of pre-approved, places where you can buy carbon offsets. And so you can't just go out and buy whatever carbon offsets you find. You have to go from an approved list that they vetted themselves. And so you go ahead on that marketplace and you buy the carbon offsets. And then after they approve that, then you're good to go. And so, yeah, I mean, we wanted to be climate neutral certified because we felt that the industry was quite wasteful. And I always believe that each company should have a mission that's bigger than the company or the employees. And that really attracts the right partnerships, and it attracts the right employees. And so, what we found is that the brands that come to us are very conscious about, packaging materials. They love that we're climate neutral certified and that we care about the planet. And so it's actually become an advantage for us in a lot of ways when we work with brands that are value aligned in this manner. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting area, but I feel like it's going to continue to get more, I guess, attention, and more brands are going to jump on this. And we just want it to be, kind of the pioneers in the space. So I'm really proud that we are climate neutral certified, and the partners that are choosing to work with us are also they're also pioneers. So it's been a phenomenal, journey for us.
It's commendable, and it doesn't surprise me that partners want to work with, and employees want to work for a company that values altruism over greed, and is willing to put up their pennies, their dimes and dollars for a greater good. That makes me feel like I'm doing good when I work with that sort of a company. So I think that's an evident decision to make. Lastly, probably not the last project that you're working on, but the last we'll talk about today, your podcast, First Class Founders. Can you tell me a little bit about that, the idea behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I started my company 7.5 years ago, I did not have a great resource for what I was trying to build. And it was on the internet, but it was really scattered, and there wasn't a really well curated place. And so what I'm trying to do with First Class Founders is bring people and conversations, and also bring my own expertise and experience into the show. And then essentially I want it to be, the best entrepreneurial, podcast for bootstrap founders. Cause that's, I bootstrapped this myself as well. So I have no experience with venture capital funding. And to be honest, that's not my style of doing business. And so, this really is a show that I wish I had, 7.5 years ago when I started. And, I really want to make sure that it's a tight show. And so, I have a producer for it. It's a really high production show. And yeah, I mean, I just love it because I don't know, it just feels like part of it is like me giving back to
Sure.
the community and you know, entrepreneurs in general. But part of it is also like, I feel like I have this like message that I want to like spread. And I feel like I have a unique way of viewing the world of business. And I want to make sure that, you know, I have a voice to be able to share that. So it's a combination of a few things, but yeah, firstclassfounders.com is the website for the podcast, and you can search it First Class Founders on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast.
And it's cool. It's a mix of things. You know, I listened to a few episodes and I like the whole idea of some episodes are just you know, talking into Mike, giving your, you know, 10 techniques on improving a business, something like that. And then others are sit down interviews with, you know, a guy who came up with a Hustle GPT or something like that. And so I kind of like the fluidity of what someone is going to listen to that day. Could be very different. And yeah, I definitely recommend our listeners check that out. Our last question for you is essentially revolves around e-commerce entrepreneurs and working 24/7, 365 in a high stress industry. So Yong-Soo, I'm curious what you do in your free time in terms of hobbies and interests to alleviate that sort of stress, establish good work-life harmony, and stable mental health.
Yeah. So I think that it's really important to shut down the part of your brain that is actively working and doing something. And I do believe that if you schedule in time to turn your brain off, like go for a walk, or, you know, I told you about the French Bulldogs. We actually have two French Bulldogs. So we take them to the park.
Humphrey's got a friend.
yeah, exactly. So we take them to the park, or we go on a long walk in the woods with them. It just really clears your mind and your head. And what's interesting is if you have a problem that you're trying to solve, your brain is wired to solve those problems, and it does it better when you're not thinking about the problem. It has this like crazy like behind the scenes like processing power where it'll
it's the shower principle.
It's the shower principle. Yeah, it's crazy, but it works. And so
yeah,
what I like to do is you know, towards the end of the day, I'll kind of have some things that are unresolved in my mind. But you know, when I go on these walks, or you know, sometimes I'll just read a book, like a book that's not related to what I'm working on. It's funny how like the answers to your problems just pop up in the most random moments, like you said, in the shower. But they do, and they only pop up during times when you're not doing the work itself. And so I really do, you know, like that you take time to just get away from it, and then you're actually, not only are you like rejuvenating your mind and your brain, but you're actually, you know, solving a problem that you don't even know you're solving. And so that's like the beauty of all that. So yeah.
No, that's very cool. I appreciate that advice, man. Yong-Soo, good luck with your many ventures, and good luck with the podcast. And thanks for coming on the show, man.
I had a lot of fun, Alex. And yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I hope your listeners found a lot of value in what we discussed today.